The moment their shoulders brushed in the cramped boiler room, Soyeon felt an electric thrill through her whole body. And when his warm lips awakened hers, parched for 10 years on the living room sofa, she finally remembered what it felt like to be a woman. That night, they kissed hungrily, and remained completely entwined until dawn. Before we begin the story, please subscribe and like, thank you. Park Soyeon, drinking wine alone. On the 38th floor of a luxury apartment in Upjong, Seoul, suddenly detected the smell of gas. Her husband had been on an overseas business trip for over a month. And during that time Soyeon had been slowly consumed by loneliness. Nights were especially hard to endure. Although she had married at 45, her relationship with her husband had long since gone cold, and she felt herself being completely forgotten as a woman. Sitting on the sofa in her silk pajamas, Soyeon looked down at her body. Her figure was still firm and beautiful. Yet no one noticed. Over 10 years of marriage, her husband had gradually lost interest in her, and Soyeon had never had a chance to confirm her own appeal. Her chest was full of suffocating longing. Just then she caught a clear smell of gas and stood up in a fluster. Her silk nightgown clung to her, revealing elegant curves. But there was nobody to see them. She felt completely unsure who to call for help in a situation like this. She called the management office, but the night duty officer said they couldn't provide professional assistance. The officer recommended a 24-hour emergency gas inspection service. With trembling hands, Soyeon dialed the number. "Hello, this is the emergency gas inspection service," came a deep, confident voice. From that voice she felt a strange reassurance. And, unexpectedly, a flutter like the presence of a man she hadn't felt in a long time. I think there's a gas smell, could you check it? It's really urgent," she said. Her voice trembled slightly, not just from the gas, but because talking to a stranger made her nervous. His calm, warm tone eased her a little. Yet at the same time, the idea of inviting a stranger into her home made her heart race. It was the first time she'd been in such a situation alone. 30 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Soyeon's heart began pounding. She held her breath when she saw the person on the intercom screen. A tall man with broad shoulders stood there in professional work clothes. He looked to be in his early 50s. But he gave a very masculine, trustworthy impression. Without realizing it, she smoothed her hair and tightened her robe. "Hello, King Minho from the gas inspection service." His voice sounded even clearer when she opened the door. Soyeon felt her face flush instantly. It had been a long time since she'd seen an attractive man, and being alone with him at home excited her. Minho was also momentarily taken aback by the beauty of the woman who opened the door, the elegance visible beneath her silk robe, and her subtle scent of perfume left him slightly disoriented. "Please come in. Thank you so much. I felt so uneasy being alone," she said. Her voice carried an unfamiliar coyness. Her feminine side showed without her even noticing. Minho stopped for a moment looking at Soyeon's face. She was much younger and more beautiful than he'd expected. As Minho headed to the kitchen, Soyeon followed naturally. Walking behind him, she watched his broad shoulders and confident stride closely. The presence of a man after so long made her inexplicably flutter. Her robe slipped slightly, revealing her shoulder line. But she didn't bother to fix it. "I need to check the boiler. Could you come with me? It's safer if 2 people are there," he suggested. Soyeon nodded at Minho's suggestion without hesitation. The boiler room was tiny. And with both of them inside, their shoulders inevitably brushed. Soyeon felt his presence and masculine scent up close, and her heart raced. As Minho checked with his meter, Soyeon watched him closely from right beside him. In that confined space, their breathing overlapped. Soyeon felt her chest knot settling. And Minho was strongly aware of her presence as well. The subtle scent from her silk robe and her warm body made it hard for him to concentrate. While Minho worked with his tools, Soyeon watched his hands intently. They were large and rough, yet moved with surprising delicacy. Suddenly he dropped a tool and leaned towards Soyeon. And their bodies pressed together for a moment. Soyeon's chest brushed his arm. And they both froze for a moment. Minho was disoriented by her soft touch. And Soyeon trembled at the warmth of a man she hadn't felt in years. Her heart beat faster still. And his masculine scent and warm body stirred her desire. All done. It's safe now, he said. But they didn't leave the boiler room immediately. They just looked at each other. The glance shared in that tight space created a peculiar tension and attraction. Soyeon felt her chest surge. And Minho clearly noticed the change in her. Their eyes seemed to say they both longed for something. Would you like some tea? Soyeon offered, and Minho nodded. Sitting in the living room with tea, they naturally began to talk. Soyeon deliberately sat close to him. Her gown slipped slightly to reveal her leg. But she didn't bother to cover it. She felt Minho's gaze linger there. They talked about their loneliness. Soyeon confessed the chill in her marriage. And Minho admitted his loneliness since his divorce 3 years ago. Sharing their pain brought them closer. Have you been very lonely? Soyeon asked. Minho answered honestly. He revealed he too felt deep loneliness. Soyeon was moved by his honesty. Knowing they had similar wounds made him feel closer to her. I feel the same, she said. For 10 years my husband hasn't seen me as a woman. Soyeon's confession carried deep pain and longing. Minho's chest ached at her confession. It was hard to believe such a beautiful, charming woman felt that loneliness. You're truly beautiful, Minho said sincerely, and Soyeon blushed. It had been ages since she'd heard such a compliment. The atmosphere grew more intimate. And the physical distance between them naturally closed. As the night deepened, their connection heated further. They spoke of life, dreams, and suppressed desires, drawing ever closer. Soyeon poured out emotions she'd hidden for a long time. And Minho listened to her genuinely. As she spoke, Soyeon gently placed her hand on his. Minho felt the warmth and softness of her touch. As if it belonged to him. In her eyes the feminine charm she'd long forgotten was coming back to life. They looked at each other, exchanging feelings in silence. The mood warmed, and their faces slowly drew nearer. Soyeon's heart raced wildly. And Minho was utterly captivated by her beautiful eyes. Soyeon parted her lips slightly without realizing. And Minho was drawn to that sight even more. Minho slowly reached out and brushed Soyeon's cheek. She closed her eyes at his touch. His warm, rough hand traced her soft skin upward. An electric sensation ran through her body. And a small moan escaped her throat. Her body responded to a man's caress for the first time in 10 years. Is this really okay? Minho whispered close to her ear. His warm breath tickling her neck. Soyeon nodded and looked at him. Longing filled her eyes. At that moment their lips met slowly at first. A featherlight, tentative kiss. Soyeon's lips were tinted pale pink. And Minho was intoxicated by their sweetness. As the kiss began, Soyeon felt herself melting. The feminine sensations she'd forgotten over 10 years were being revived. Minho's lips explored deeper and Soyeon responded by wrapping her arms around his neck. When their tongues briefly touched, Soyeon let out a faint moan that sounded excited. And the kiss grew deeper and more passionate. Minho's hand wrapped around her waist, drawing her closer. Soyeon nestled wholly into his arms, feeling his firm chest. Their bodies pressed together, sharing warmth. And the kiss intensified. Soyeon's silk robe slipped from her shoulder, revealing her graceful nape. When the kiss paused, they looked at each other and gasped for breath. Her lips were swollen, soft, and flushed from the kiss. And her eyes glistened. Minho found her utterly lovely and beautiful. And wanted to kiss her again. "This feeling, it's been so long," Soyeon confessed, breathless. Her voice was softer and sweeter than usual. Minho felt his chest heat at her confession. Unable to resist, he pulled her close again. This kiss was hotter and more fervent. Minho's lips devoured hers as their tongues tangled deeply. Soyeon trembled under his intense kiss, unintentionally letting out soft moans. Her hands cradled Minho's head, deepening the kiss. When Minho's lips trailed down to her neck, Soyeon tilted her head back. All the emotions and desires suppressed. For 10 years erupted at once. "You're so beautiful," Minho whispered near her ear. And Soyeon grew more excited. This time Soyeon sought out Minho's lips first. She no longer held back, she was honest with her desire. The third kiss was deep and aching. As if they were sharing everything. They held each other tightly, unwilling to let go. And Soyeon buried her face in his broad chest. Minho's heartbeat pulsed against her cheek like a love song. When the kiss ended, they looked at each other and smiled in bliss. Soyeon's face was full of feminine satisfaction and happiness. And Minho was intoxicated with a genuine feeling of love he hadn't felt in a long time. "May I stay tonight?" Minho asked gently. And Soyeon no longer hesitated. It was the moment she confirmed her true heart. She'd forgotten for 10 years. She nodded and gripped his hand tightly. That night, they soothed one another's loneliness. And became completely one. Soyeon reclaimed every feminine sensation she'd long forgotten. And Minho gave his whole heart to her. In the moonlit bedroom, they comforted each other. Loved, and promised a new beginning. The next morning, Soyeon woke to warm sunlight. Watching Minho sleeping peacefully beside her, she smiled happily. The sense of complete fulfillment and being loved feelings she hadn't had in 10 years washed over her. Her reflection looked more beautiful and vibrant than ever. When Minho woke, they exchanged shy but joyful smiles. "Don't you regret it?" he asked anxiously. Soyeon shook her head. "Not at all. I feel alive for the first time," she confessed. And Minho hugged her again. They drank morning coffee and talked about their future. Though their situation was complicated, their feelings for each other were certain. At 8 a.m., Minho tried to get up. Soyeon was reluctant to let him go. But she knew realistically he couldn't stay. "You really have to go. We still have so much to talk about," she pleaded, and Minho hesitated. He too, didn't want their warm, sweet time to end. He was intoxicated by her touch, her scent, and that sweet kiss. Minho cautiously asked if they could meet again. Soyeon smiled and nodded. Minho handed over his business card and took her hand in both of his. They both felt a powerful current pass between them. It was an intense attraction after so long a premonition of new love. They lingered at the door, saying goodbye and gazing at each other. When Soyeon thanked him, Minho smiled warmly. And lightly brushed her cheek again. He left with a soft kiss on her forehead. Afterwards, Soyeon sat alone in the living room, steeped in lingering emotion. Looking in the mirror, she saw a vitality and beauty she hadn't seen in a long time. She never imagined a routine gas check would blossom into such a special feeling. She felt her long-forgotten femininity and charm returning, and thrilled at the possibility of new love. Thinking of his kiss lingering on her lips, Soyeon smiled. This was the real thrill of love she'd felt for the first time in 10 years. A week passed since their first meeting. Each night Soyeon fell asleep recalling that passionate night with Minho. She held his business card and wanted to call him dozens of times. But guilt and fear kept her from doing so. Guilt over being a married woman mixed with longing for him, tossing her emotions about. Then, unexpectedly that afternoon, Minho called. Soyeon's heart began to pound as if it would burst. "Do you have time tonight? I really want to see you," he asked. Minho's voice was the same warm tone as a week ago. Soyeon answered with a trembling yes. Her husband was away on another business trip, and she was completely alone. Soyeon prepared all day with a flutter in her chest, choosing an elegant wine-colored dress. Looking in the mirror she saw a woman in love, glowing in a way that made it hard to believe she was 55. At exactly 7 p.m., the doorbell rang. When she opened the door, Minho stood there holding a bouquet of red roses. Soyeon nearly lost her breath at the sight of him. "You're absolutely beautiful. I thought about you all week," Minho said as he handed her the flowers. And Soyeon's face flushed red. They moved into the living room naturally. "I missed you every day too," Soyeon confessed honestly. And Minho pulled her into an embrace. They soothed a week's worth of longing with a heated kiss this time, even more intense and aching. Minho's hand slid down Soyeon's back, and she let out a soft moan. As the zipper of her dress slowly came down, her soft shoulder was revealed. Then, the sound of a key at the front door froze them. Her husband had returned earlier than expected. Soyeon's face went white. He was supposed to be away until tomorrow. "Honey, it's me," her husband's voice called from the entrance. Flustered, Soyeon hurriedly fixed her dress, while Minho quickly assessed the situation. "Tell him you called me back for a gas recheck," Minho whispered to her. When her husband entered the living room, the two of them sat apart on the sofa. "Ah, who is this?" he asked, looking at Minho. "He's the gas inspector who came last time." There was another strange smell. "So he came again," Soyeon answered calmly, though her heart raced. "Oh, I see. Thank you. I'm tired, so I'll rest early," her husband replied. He looked truly exhausted from his trip. Sensing the awkward atmosphere, Minho stood up. "The inspection's done, so I'll be on my way, take care." As her husband thanked him, Minho glanced at Soyeon, before leaving a look full of regret and longing. After Minho left, her husband showered and went straight to bed. Sleeping deeply with even a snore, he looked exhausted. Soyeon sat alone in the living room, sorting through mixed emotions, longing for Minho, tangled with guilt toward her husband. Above all, she felt that her husband had changed too much lately. It wasn't until 2 a.m. that Soyeon went to bed. Her husband was still fast asleep, with his phone on the bedside table, and curiosity struck her. He'd been on frequent trips and never put his phone down at home. Lately she suspected he was hiding something. Soyeon carefully picked up his phone, and entered their anniversary code. When the screen lit up, she opened the gallery. The first few photos were ordinary. But as she scrolled down, Soyeon found shocking images. Photos of her husband with a young, beautiful woman, sitting at a restaurant laughing, holding hands on a beach, kissing in front of a hotel. Dozens of pictures filled the gallery. Soyeon's hands trembled. What she'd only suspected had turned out to be true. Her husband had lied about business trips. and was traveling with another woman. The expressions in those photos were a far cry from the face he showed at home. She couldn't remember the last time he looked that happy with her. Unable to look further, she put the phone back and went into the living room. Her chest ached and she felt betrayed. But strangely, emptiness overwhelmed anger. This is over, she thought, sinking into the sofa in deep reflection. She hadn't expected their 10-year marriage to end this way, though perhaps it had been inevitable. The next morning he prepared for work, as if nothing had happened. "Honey, I've got to go on another business trip. It looks like about a week," he said. "Where to?" Soyeon asked calmly. "Busan, that big project," he lied. Listening to him, Soyeon felt resolved. She could no longer live with lies. After he left, Soyeon called Minho. "Can we meet? I have something to tell you." "Of course. Where shall we meet?" An hour later at the cafe. Soyeon's expression was resolute. "I looked through my husband's phone last night," she said quietly. Minho looked at her with concern. "There were so many photos of him with another woman," she continued. "He lied about his trips and was having an affair," she said calmly. Minho took her hand. "You must have had a hard time," Minho asked. "No, it actually feels like a relief. Everything's clear now." She said she'd already accepted it all. "I'm getting a divorce. I can't keep living in a meaningless marriage." "Are you sure you're okay?" Minho worried. Soyeon smiled. "Yes. I'll be free." Then, after a brief pause, she found courage and said, "I want a fresh start with you." A bright, delighted smile spread across Minho's face. "That's what I've dreamed of, too." A week later, when her husband returned from his trip, Soyeon handed him divorce papers. "What is this?" he asked, flustered. "These are divorce papers. Please sign," she said calmly. And his face hardened. "Why all of a sudden? What's going on?" "I saw all the photos on your phone," she replied. "Soyeon, don't make excuses, that's over," she said firmly, and he had no defense. "I'm sorry," he muttered. "Sorry won't fix this. Let's end it cleanly." In the end he agreed to the divorce. And a month later everything was finalized. Soyeon received adequate alimony and property settlement. Minho actually held a managerial position at the gas company, and was financially stable. The two had a quiet wedding, and began their newlywed life in a new apartment. "We met over a gas leak, and now I'm this happy," Soyeon said, wrapped in Minho's arms, her voice full of deep emotion. "It must have been fate. Maybe I was meant to do that job to meet you," Minho said as he stroked her hair. Soyeon closed her eyes. At his warm touch she hadn't felt such peace in so long. On their first morning after marriage, Soyeon woke early to prepare breakfast before Minho. Standing by the window in the warm morning light, she could hardly believe she felt such excitement and happiness at 55. "That smells wonderful," Minho said, embracing her from behind. "It's your favorite soybean paste stew. Anything you make tastes amazing," Minho said sweetly, and Soyeon smiled shyly. It felt like a miracle to be loved like this in her mid-50s. Over breakfast they shared small daily moments. Minho noticed the tiniest changes in Soyeon's expression, and she fell more in love with his attentiveness. "How about a walk if I finish work early today?" "Sure. How about Hanbong Park?" "Perfect." Such ordinary talk tasted sweetest to Soyeon. It was communication she'd never known in her previous marriage. Passers-by smiled as they saw the two walking hand in hand at dusk along the Hanbong. The affectionate sight of an older couple looked heartwarming. "People are smiling at us," Soyeon said shyly. And Minho replied. "They probably think we look happy. When I'm with you, the world seems beautiful." Minho confessed, and Soyeon's heart warmed. It amazed her that she could feel such pure emotions. Even at 55. Sitting by the riverside watching the sunset, Soyeon opened up to Minho. "To be honest, I was scared at first starting a new love at this age. I felt the same." Minho answered sincerely. "But when I saw you, age didn't matter. Do you really not regret it?" she asked anxiously. Minho looked at her and answered from the heart. "Never. You're the most precious gift of my life." Tears welled in Soyeon's eyes at Minho's confession. "Meeting you is the greatest luck of my life." Even if it was late in life, they now knew what true love was. Embracing each other tightly by the sunset river. It was a pure, beautiful love that transcended age. A year after marrying, Soyeon and Minho opened a small cafe together, naming it Gasset Cafe, in honor of how they met. Soyeon, working at the cafe, looked more vibrant than ever. "Oh my, you look so happy, ma'am," a regular said, and Soyeon smiled brightly. "Yes, I'm really happy. It's the newlywed glow, I suppose." "How wonderful for you." The comment made Soyeon smile even more, being newlyweds at 55 felt wonderful. That evening, as they closed the cafe and walked home, Minho took Soyeon's hand. "Good job today, boss," he teased affectionately. "You too," she replied. They laughed and walked home, ordinary life, but made special by being together. At home, sitting side by side, on the sofa with tea, Soyeon spoke to Minho. "Sometimes it feels like a dream. Like, is all this real?" "It's not a dream. It's our reality," Minho said, wrapping an arm around her shoulder. "Will we be able to stay this happy?" "Of course. We'll love each other like this until our hair's white," Minho promised, and Soyeon nestled deeper into his arms. "I love you. I love you too." Their love was a true love that transcended age. They met later in life, which made it all the more precious and deep. Thus Soyeon and Minho found true love through a meeting that began with a routine gas check. It was a beautiful twilight romance, proving age is just a number and real love has no timing. Sometimes the love you meet in life's later chapters is the most genuine and precious. The love of Soyeon and Minho overcame trials to build a new family, a touching story. Subscribing and liking give us the power to make better stories. Please share your thoughts in the comments. We'll bring you more touching and intriguing stories next time. Thank you.